There is a prayer sitting in millions of Christian mouths right now, and heaven is legally blocked from answering it. Not because God is unwilling, not because he is distant or deaf, but because the prayer itself contradicts the finished work of the cross. I have spent my life studying the Word of God. I have sat with the original languages. I have traced the covenant from Genesis to Revelation, and I tell you with absolute certainty, there is a category of prayer that does not move heaven. It moves nothing. It accomplishes nothing. And the tragedy is that the church has been teaching this prayer for generations, calling it humility, calling it faith, calling it devotion. It is none of those things. It is unbelief dressed in religious clothing, and it is keeping millions of sincere, blood-washed, spirit-filled believers in a prison that the cross already unlocked. Today, I am going to show you exactly what that prayer is. I am going to show you why heaven cannot answer it. And I am going to show you from Scripture, from covenant, from the finished work of Calvary, what God is actually waiting to hear from your lips. This is not a message about trying harder. This is a message about seeing clearly. Once you see what I am about to show you, you will never pray the same way again. You will never approach God the same way again, and the enemy will never be able to use your own mouth against you again. Before we go further, type the word "done" in the comments right now. Not as a wish, as a declaration. Because by the time this message is finished, that word is going to mean something entirely new to you. I want to begin with a question that most preachers never ask from the pulpit. Why did Jesus say, "It is finished"? Not what did he mean. Why did he say it at all? Think about that. He was on the cross. He was dying. And in that final consuming moment, he did not cry out in despair. He did not whisper a prayer. He made a declaration. He said, "It is finished." Tetelestai, a Greek business term, a legal term, a term that first-century merchants wrote across a paid invoice to indicate that the debt was fully, finally, permanently satisfied, paid in full. Now here is what I need you to understand. When Jesus said those words, he was not describing his physical death. He was announcing a completed legal transaction. He was not saying, "My suffering is over." He was saying, "The work of redemption is done. Sin is dealt with. The curse is broken. Sickness has been carried. Guilt has been removed. Satan's dominion is shattered. The separation between God and man is ended. Everything the fall introduced, every consequence, every bondage, every claim, darkness held over humanity was answered, absorbed, and finished in that moment. This means there is nothing left for God to provide. He has already provided it. The supply side of heaven is fully stocked. Forgiveness finished, healing finished, righteousness finished, peace finished, authority over the enemy finished. And yet millions of Christians wake up every morning and ask God to do what he already did. They pray for what is already purchased. They beg for what has already been given. They plead for a move of God when God already moved 2,000 years ago at a skull-shaped hill outside Jerusalem. I am not being harsh. I am being honest. And the difference between those two things is love. I want you to hear this clearly because this is where the revelation begins to cut. When you pray, "Lord, please heal me," without understanding the finished work, you are not demonstrating faith. You are demonstrating that you do not yet believe the cross was enough. When you pray, "God, please forgive me again," after you have already confessed and been cleansed, you are not demonstrating humility. You are telling God that the blood of his Son was insufficient. When you pray, "Lord, please give me strength," Please give me peace. Please give me victory. As though these things are still pending. You were treating the cross like an incomplete transaction, like a check that was written but never cleared. I once said it this way: we have prayed for what we already possess. And that sentence has the power to reorganize your entire prayer life, if you will let it settle into your spirit. The prayer God cannot answer is the prayer that asks Him to do what Calvary already accomplished. Not because He refuses, but because there is nothing left to do. You cannot deposit money into an account that is already full. You cannot complete a work that is already finished. The problem is not in heaven. The problem is in our understanding. Now I want to take you back before the cross, back to the origin of all of this, because unless you understand what was lost, you cannot fully grasp what was restored. In the beginning, God created man in His own image. Adam was not created sick. He was not created weak, fearful, or subject to the dominion of darkness. He was created as God's representative on the earth, carrying divine authority, living in perfect union with His Creator, and ruling over a creation that was declared very good. There was no sickness in Eden, no death, no guilt, no poverty, no fear. The human body was designed to carry the life of God, and that life was health itself. But then came the catastrophe. Adam made a choice, and in that choice he did more than commit a sin. He committed an act of legal transfer. He surrendered the authority God had given him to the enemy. And with that transfer came death, not merely physical death, but the death principle: decay, corruption, sickness, separation from God. Romans 5:12 tells us that by one man, sin entered into the world, and death by sin. Sickness is not God's design. It is the fruit of the fall. It is death working in the body. It is the consequence of what Adam forfeited. For centuries, humanity lived under that shadow. God gave the law, and within the law, He revealed His heart. Exodus 15:26. I am the Lord that healeth thee. Jehovah Rapha, the Lord your physician. Even under the Old Covenant, God was establishing that sickness was never His design for His people. But that covenant was conditional. It rested on human performance. And human beings are not capable of consistent, perfect performance. So the Old Covenant could diagnose. It could not permanently cure. It pointed forward. It pointed to one who was coming. One who would not merely manage the consequences of the fall, but would legally reverse them. That one came. And His name is Jesus Christ. Look at His ministry through clear eyes for a moment. Did Jesus ever refuse to heal someone who came to Him? Did He ever tell a sick man that his suffering was the will of the Father? Did He ever look at a leper and say, "Stay in your condition, God is teaching you something through this"? Never. Not once. Not a single time in the 4 Gospels. He healed all who came. He healed all manner of sickness and all manner of disease. Matthew 4:23. He did not select cases. He did not evaluate levels of faith and turn away those who didn't qualify. He healed consistently, completely, without exception. And when His disciples asked Him, "Lord, teach us to pray," what did He say? He did not teach them to beg. He gave them a model prayer that began with a declaration of sonship, "Our Father," and moved toward a decree of heaven's will, "Thy kingdom come, Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." That is not the language of a beggar. That is the language of a son enforcing the will of his Father. John 14:9 records Jesus saying, "He that hath seen me hath seen the Father." When you look at Jesus, healing the sick, casting out devils, raising the dead, you are seeing the Father's will on display, unambiguous, undeniable. The Father's will is wholeness. The Father's will is life. The Father's will is freedom. Sickness is not a gift from God. It is an intrusion from the enemy. And Jesus came, as 1 John 3:8 declares, for this purpose, that he might destroy the works of the devil. Now we come to the heart of it, the cross. This is where everything changed. This is where the legal structure of redemption was laid, brick by brick, in the broken body of the Son of God. Isaiah 53. Read it with fresh eyes. Surely he hath borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. The Hebrew word for griefs is choli, it means sickness. The Hebrew word for sorrows is makob, it means pains. The translator softened it, but the original language is unmistakable. Surely he hath borne our sicknesses and carried our pains. He did not merely bear the guilt of sin. He bore the consequences of sin. He bore sickness. He bore pain. He bore the physical weight of everything the fall had produced in the human body. In verse 5, he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. Are healed. Present tense. Finished reality. Matthew 8:17 quotes Isaiah directly. Himself took our infirmities and bare our sicknesses. The word took is aorist tense in Greek. It means completed action. It already happened. He took them. Past tense. Done. If he took them, and the Word of God says he took them, then they do not belong to you anymore. You cannot carry what he already carried. You cannot bear what he already bore. The moment you accept this as legal fact, rather than poetic sentiment, the way you pray will change forever. And then, when the work was complete, when sin had been absorbed, when sickness had been carried, when the curse had been broken, when Satan's dominion had been stripped, Jesus lifted his voice from that cross and said, "It is finished, paid in full, transaction complete. The debt of the entire human race satisfied." Galatians 3:13 says Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law being made a curse for us. The curse of Deuteronomy 28, which includes every sickness, every disease, every plague, every form of physical deterioration, was placed upon him, so that it could be removed from us. This is not theology for scholars. This is the inheritance of every blood-washed believer. So why does the church keep praying the prayer God cannot answer? I will tell you exactly why. Because we have been taught with the very best of intentions to approach God as though he is still deciding, as though healing is still pending, as though the finished work is not quite finished. We sing about the cross. We preach about the blood. And then we go home and beg God to do what the blood already accomplished. The prayer that heaven is legally blocked from answering is this one: "Lord, please heal me, if it be thy will." Said without knowledge, said without revelation, said as though the will of God is still uncertain on this subject. But beloved 3, John verse 2 settles it. "Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper, and be in health even as thy soul prospereth." The Greek word for wish, there is eukomai. It means to will, to desire, to purpose. This is not a passive sentiment. It is the declared active, settled will of God for every one of his children. The will of God is not a mystery when it comes to healing. The will of God is written. Isaiah 53:5, 1 Peter 2:24, Matthew 8:17, Psalm 103:3. These are not suggestions. They are legal declarations of what the cross purchased. When the leper came to Jesus and said, "Lord, if thou wilt, thou canst make me clean," notice what Jesus did not do. He did not pause to consider. He did not say, Let me check whether this aligns with my sovereign plan. He reached out his hand and said, I will. Be thou clean. Immediately, decisively, without hesitation. I will. That is your answer. That has always been your answer. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever, and his will has not changed. The prayer of, if it be thy will, when spoken in ignorance of what the cross already accomplished, is not humble faith. It is faith with the brakes on. It is agreement with uncertainty, where certainty has been established. And a prayer built on uncertainty cannot produce a confident result. Now I want to speak to you as a father speaks to a son, because I know what some of you are feeling right now. You have prayed, you have believed, you have stood on the word, and you are still waiting for the manifestation. I am not here to condemn you. I am here to strengthen you. The issue is never on God's side. His supply is inexhaustible. His word is settled. His finished work is eternally complete. The issue is always on the receiving side, and the receiving side is governed by faith, and faith is governed by confession, and confession is governed by identity. Here is what I mean. If you see yourself as a sinner who occasionally gets healed, when God feels generous, you will pray as a beggar. Your words will carry hesitation. Your confession will undermine your faith, and your faith will have no road to travel on. I once wrote, confession builds the road over which faith carries its mighty cargo. That is not a poetic flourish. It is a spiritual law. Your words build either a highway or a dead end. And the moment you say, I don't know if God will heal me, you have just poured concrete across your own road. But when you know who you are, when you know that you are the righteousness of God in Christ, that you are a new creation, that you are an heir of God and a joint heir with Christ, when you know that the same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead dwells in you, then your words carry weight. They carry legal authority. They carry the backing of heaven's throne. Romans 8:11. He that raised up Christ from the dead shall also quicken your mortal bodies by his Spirit that dwelleth in you. That Spirit is not visiting you. He is dwelling in you. And the life of that Spirit is health, wholeness, and resurrection power, flowing from your spirit into your body as you renew your mind to the Word and align your confession with truth. This is why the prayer that works is not a prayer of petition. It is a prayer of possession. There is a vast difference between the two. The prayer of petition says, God, I need you to give me what I don't have. The prayer of possession says, Father, I thank you for what you have already given me. I receive it. I lay hold of it. I enforce it in the name of Jesus. One is the prayer of an orphan. The other is the prayer of a son. I have said it plainly before, and I will say it again. The prayer of faith is not the begging of an inferior. It is the claiming of the rights of a son. You are not an inferior approaching a reluctant sovereign. You are a covenant child, standing before a faithful father, claiming what the blood of his son already purchased on your behalf. That is not presumption. That is faith. And that is exactly what moves heaven. Look at how Jesus prayed at the tomb of Lazarus, 4 days dead, the mourners weeping, the stone in place. And Jesus said, Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me. John 11:41. He thanked the Father before Lazarus moved, before the stone rolled, before the miracle was visible. He spoke from a place of completed reality, not pending possibility. That is your model. That is the prayer God can answer, because it agrees with what He has already said. Let me give you something concrete to carry out of this message. Stop praying. Lord, please heal me, as your primary posture. Start praying, Father, I thank you that by the stripes of Jesus I am healed. Start praying, I receive the finished work of the cross over my body right now. Start speaking to sickness the way Jesus spoke to the fig tree, directly, authoritatively, with the confidence of one who knows the word is settled. Mark 11:23. Whosoever shall say unto this mountain, Be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart, but shall believe that those things which he saith shall come to pass, he shall have whatsoever he saith. Your sickness is a mountain. Stop describing the mountain to God. Start commanding the mountain in his name. He has already authorized you. He has already delegated the authority. He has already stripped the enemy of his legal claim over your body. Your part is to believe it, confess it, and act on it until the physical realm catches up with the spiritual reality. And when the doubt rises, because it will, you resist it the same way Jesus resisted the wilderness. You say, It is written. Not it is hoped. Not it might be. It is written. By his stripes I am healed. Himself took my infirmities and bare my sicknesses. The same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead dwells in me and quickens my mortal body. The word in your mouth is just as powerful as the word in his mouth because it is the same word. When you speak it in faith, heaven backs it. Angels hearken to the voice of his word, as Psalm 103:20 declares. The forces of heaven are waiting for the believer who knows what is already done and speaks accordingly. I want to close with this. I have watched believers suffer, not because God withheld, but because no one told them what was theirs. I have watched men and women drag through decades of sickness, poverty, and spiritual defeat, carrying burdens that Christ already carried for them, simply because they were never taught to see the cross as a finished transaction. That is the great tragedy of the modern church. Not that God is unwilling, but that his people are uninformed. And uninformed believers pray uninformed prayers, and uninformed prayers that contradict what Calvary accomplished cannot produce the results that Calvary purchased. When Jesus sat down at the right hand of the Father, his work was finished. When you take your place in him, when you rest in that finished work, when you speak from that finished work, when you receive from that finished work, everything changes. You stop begging. You start enforcing. You stop hoping. You start receiving. You stop waiting for God to move. You start walking in the movement he already made. This is your inheritance, not a distant hope, not a theological concept, a present, legal, blood-purchased, eternally established reality. The prayer God cannot answer is the prayer that asks him to do what the cross already did. The prayer God delights to answer is the prayer of a child who knows what their father has provided and comes boldly, without shame, without hesitation to receive it. Your confession is the mother of your faith. It is the soil in which your faith grows and bears fruit. So differently, from this day forward, speak the word over your body, your family, your future. Speak it as fact. Speak it as inheritance. Speak it as a son who knows his father's will and refuses to accept anything less than what the blood purchased. The cross said, "It is finished." Now it is time for your faith to agree. Type "finished" in the comments if this word is settled in your spirit today, and if this message opens something in, you share it with someone who is still praying the prayer heaven cannot answer, because the truth that sets them free is the same truth that just set you free. It is finished. Receive it.